His name is Richard Moore. He is 61 years old. He moved to Chiang Mai in March 2021 at the age of 57 with a state government pension of approximately $1,800 a month and $340,000 in personal savings. Before he moved, he spent 2 years researching the decision. He made 2 scouting trips, not as a tourist, but as a researcher. He produced a 47-page retirement planning document, projected monthly costs broken down by category, visa pathway timelines, currency risk modeling, healthcare cost projections, including insurance premium escalation curves, emergency fund allocation protocols, a Plan B scenario built around a 15% dollar weakening. 47 pages, color-coded, with footnotes. At his original budget of $1,400 a month, his $340,000 gave him 20 years of savings runway on top of his pension. He calculated he would never run out of money. In fact, under his base case scenario, he projected he might never need to touch his savings at all. The pension alone nearly covered everything. His first month in Chiang Mai, he spent $1,180, $220 under his already conservative budget. He called his sister in Portland and told her, the YouTube guys were actually underselling it. Richard Moore is leaving Thailand in 2026 with $41,000. He arrived with $340,000. He lost $299,000 in 5 years. Not to a scam, not to a bar, not to a single bad decision or a moment of recklessness or a con artist or a gambling habit or any of the stories you tell yourself to stay comfortable. He lost it to 12 quiet, structural, accumulating reasons that nobody warned him about, and that the YouTube retirement dream industry has been actively concealing, not through malice, but through the far more dangerous mechanism of outdated math and financial nostalgia. I am going to let Richard tell you himself exactly how it happened, reason by reason, number by number. Because if it can happen to him, it can happen to almost anyone who is using the same spreadsheet logic he was using. And right now, hundreds of thousands of men are using exactly that logic to plan exactly this retirement. Before we continue, please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any videos in the future. My name is Richard Moore. I am 61 years old. I was a civil engineer for 28 years with the state of Oregon, and I want to start by telling you something that most people in my position probably don't say. I am not angry at Thailand. I need you to understand that before you hear anything else. Because if you hear this story as the story of a bitter man blaming a country for his own failures, you will miss the entire point. Thailand did not lie to me. Thailand did not change the rules overnight or steal from me or deliberately mislead me. What happened to me is more frightening than that, because it happened through a series of small, rational, perfectly understandable decisions that each made complete sense at the time, and that together, over 5 years, dismantled a retirement I had spent a decade designing. I started planning this in earnest around 2018. I was 54 years old. I had been watching colleagues retire into American financial stress, people with good careers, solid savings, doing everything right, and still grinding through their 60s because healthcare cost more than they budgeted, because their mortgage wasn't paid off, because Social Security wasn't enough, and they'd underestimated inflation. I had a colleague named Dave, 58 years old, who had worked alongside me for 16 years, who had saved diligently, who retired at the same time his wife's health declined, and who told me quietly one afternoon that he was considering going back to part-time consulting because the numbers were not what he had expected. Dave had done everything right by every conventional measure. I watched that and I thought, I am going to figure out a different way. I did not arrive at Thailand through a moment of romantic impulse. I want to be clear about that because I think it matters for what comes later. I had a process. I had been watching YouTube channels about retiring in Southeast Asia for 2 years before I ever set foot on a plane to look. I watched dozens of them, not casually, but in a structured way, taking notes, flagging claims that needed verification, tracking down primary sources for the numbers that were cited, men sitting in Chiang Mai coffee shops eating street food that cost 40 cents, describing monthly budgets of $800, $1,000, $1,200, and living what appeared to be genuinely full and comfortable lives in warm climates with competent healthcare nearby. I was an engineer. I did not take those videos at face value. I verified against Thai immigration law documents, actual rental listings, published private hospital rate schedules, 15-year historical charts of the Thai baht against the US dollar. The numbers held. Not just the optimistic versions, even the conservative versions worked. I visited Chiang Mai in November 2019 and again in February 2020. Not as a tourist. I was not there to eat pad thai and photograph temples. I brought a notebook and a research agenda. I visited different neighborhoods and priced rental units in person. I walked through a fresh market with a notebook and priced produce. I visited Bangkok Hospital Chiang Mai and asked about the cost of a general health screening and a cardiology consultation. I sat in the waiting room of the Chiang Mai immigration office on a busy Tuesday morning and timed how long the process took and counted the foreigners ahead of me. I had conversations with expats who have been in Chiang Mai for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. I asked them the questions nobody asks in YouTube comment sections. What went wrong? What surprised you? What do you wish you had known? Every single one of them, unprompted, described minor frustrations that did not change the fundamental conclusion. The math worked. Life was good. The decision was right. I came home from the second trip and I wrote 47 pages. I am not exaggerating that number, and I did not include that detail for effect. 47 pages, organized into 6 sections. Visa and legal status, the non-OA retirement visa requirements, renewal procedures, financial thresholds, a timeline for each annual renewal cycle with buffer weeks built in, healthcare and insurance, a breakdown of private hospital costs, a comparison of 4 international insurance products, age-banded premium projections through age 70, a categorization of what each policy actually covered versus what it appeared to cover. Cost of living, a monthly budget broken down into 12 categories with low, base, and high estimates for each, and a total that I stress-tested in both directions. Currency risk modeling. I ran 5 scenarios: stable, 5% weakening, 15% weakening, 5% strengthening, 15% strengthening, and calculated the monthly budget impact of each. Community and social infrastructure. I mapped the expat community resources, language school options, volunteer opportunities, emergency protocols, what I would do if a health crisis exceeded my insurance coverage, what I would do if my visa was denied, what I would do if the dollar fell more than 25%. Under the currency strengthening scenario, where the Thai baht gained 15% against the dollar, meaning my pension bought fewer baht, my monthly shortfall would have been approximately $190. I had modeled that. I had decided that my savings buffer was large enough to absorb it if it proved not to be temporary. I was right that the scenario would occur. I was wrong about it being temporary. My monthly budget breakdown at arrival in March 2021, rent in a decent Niman Road area condo, 14,000 baht. Food, 8,000. Transport, 3,000. Utilities, 2,500. Healthcare insurance, 5,500 per month annualized. Miscellaneous and leisure, 12,000. Total, 45,000 baht per month, which at the exchange rate of 33.5 baht to the dollar, converted to approximately $1,350 a month. My pension of $1,800 converted to 60,300 baht at that rate. My surplus before touching savings, roughly $500 a month. Under my base case scenario, I projected I would never need to draw on my $340,000 in savings at all. The savings were not the plan. The savings were what the plan rested on in case the plan underperformed. In my first week in Chiang Mai, I found a coffee shop on Niman Road, air-conditioned, reliable Wi-Fi, excellent espresso for 60 baht. I set up my laptop at a corner table and opened a fresh spreadsheet and entered my first full week of real-world expenses. The numbers matched the plan within 4%. 4%. I had not landed in reality. I had landed in the plan made real, which for a man who had spent 2 years planning was a sensation I cannot adequately describe. I met my neighbor in the condo building on day 3, a British man named James, 64 years old, a retired secondary school teacher from Yorkshire, 7 years in Chiang Mai, cheerful and completely stable in his routines and his finances and his daily contentment. He was not evidence that one lucky man had made it work. He was evidence that it was possible to make it work for 7 years, which to me at that point looked like proof of concept for the long term. I called my sister in Portland from that coffee shop table. I said, the YouTube guys were actually underselling it. She laughed and said she was glad. I meant it completely. My first full month in Chiang Mai, $1,180, $220 under my already conservative budget. I updated the spreadsheet. I wrote in the notes column, month 1, on plan. I was right for a while. The first 8 months were almost exactly what I had planned. Then, slowly and without any single dramatic moment, they weren't. By mid-2022, roughly 15 months after I arrived, I noticed something I couldn't name immediately. My monthly spending, with absolutely no change in my lifestyle, was creeping upward. I wasn't eating at fancier restaurants. I wasn't taking more trips. I wasn't spending more on anything in particular. The numbers were just higher. I investigated the way an engineer investigates. I pulled every receipt, every bank statement, every exchange rate record from the previous year. And I found the first reason. The Thai baht had been quietly, persistently strengthening against the US dollar. When I arrived in March 2021, $1 bought me approximately 33.5 baht. By the end of 2022, $1 bought me approximately 30 baht. That sounds minor. Run the number. My $1,800 pension, which had converted to 60,300 baht when I arrived, was now converting to 54,000 baht. I had lost 6,300 baht per month, nearly $200, without changing a single behavior, without spending a cent more. The exchange rate simply moved, and my purchasing power in Thailand fell with it. And simultaneously, this is the part the YouTube channels never discussed, or discussed only in passing as a footnote. Thai domestic inflation was running at multi-year highs in the post-COVID period. Food at the fresh market was more expensive. My electricity bill, which had been a reliable 2,500 baht a month, was now closer to 3,200. And my landlord, at my first annual renewal, informed me that rent would increase from 14,000 to 16,100 baht per month. This is standard practice. Landlords in Chiang Mai adjust rents annually. Nobody had mentioned it to me directly. The YouTube videos, which almost always quoted rents, quoted them as if they were static facts rather than opening positions in an annually renegotiated relationship. I went to the expat forums. I typed out the numbers carefully and asked, is this normal? Is this temporary? Should I be worried? The consensus was almost unanimous. It's a short-term fluctuation. The dollar will recover. Thai inflation will normalize. You have your savings buffer for exactly this kind of turbulence. And they were right that I had the buffer. What they were not right about, what I let myself believe they were right about, was that this was turbulence. It wasn't turbulence. It was the new baseline. I just couldn't see that yet. By the end of 2022, my actual monthly spend had risen to approximately $1,540. 10% over my original budget, with zero lifestyle inflation on my part. I updated my spreadsheet. The numbers were uncomfortable but manageable. What I noticed, and what I should have paid more attention to, was my behavior around the spreadsheet. I had been updating it monthly. By the end of 2022, I was updating it twice a week. Not because anything had changed dramatically between Tuesday and Thursday. Because I was anxious, and the spreadsheet was the only thing that made me feel in control of something that was moving out of my control. I had spent 28 years as an engineer understanding structural risk. I knew what my twice-a-week spreadsheet updates meant. I chose not to say it out loud. The second thing that cracked the plan was the visa. I approached my first non-OA retirement visa renewal the way I approached every procedural challenge in my life, with preparation that was probably excessive by any normal person's standard. Color-coded folders. Every document printed in triplicate. A list of requirements cross-referenced against the Chiang Mai Immigration Office website, and 3 separate expat community posts from men who had successfully renewed in the previous 6 months. I arrived at the immigration office an hour before it opened. The officer who processed my application was polite, professional, and completely indifferent to the fact that what she told me next was going to require me to come back for another day. One of my supporting documents, a bank confirmation letter, was no longer in an accepted format. The requirement had changed. There is no announcement on the website, no update in the expat community posts I had read. The rules as written and the rules as applied on that particular Tuesday morning were different documents. I had to return with a new letter. This required a separate appointment at my bank, which charged 200 baht for the letter. I lost a week of calendar time and, more importantly, I understood something for the first time. Thai immigration requirements are codified in law, but enforced at the discretion of individual officers in individual offices on individual days. The officer I had seen the first time and the officer who processed my renewal a week later made different assessments of what was acceptable. Both were technically correct within the range of discretion their role allowed. I started researching what other expats had experienced. I found stories of men rejected mid-process for reasons they could not anticipate. Men who had to exit Thailand and re-enter on a border run to reset their status. Men who paid agents, not lawyers' agents, to handle the renewals, not because the agents had any special legal standing, but because the agents had relationships with individual immigration officers that smoothed the process in ways that were never fully explained. I hired an agent for my next renewal, 5,000 baht. It worked instantly. I added 5,000 baht per year, roughly $140, as a permanent line item to my cost structure. A line item that did not exist in the 47-page plan. But the cost was the smallest part of what I understood that day. I looked at James, my neighbor, 7 years in Thailand, renewing annually, and I saw something I had not seen before. Every single year, for as long as he lived in Thailand, a government official had the power to end his life there with a rubber stamp that read, "Denied." He did not own his stability. He rented it year by year from a system whose rules could change without notice and without recourse. In the United States, I had spent 28 years in a career with stability I took entirely for granted. Nobody could make me leave my home. Nobody could revoke my right to remain. In Thailand, I had traded that security for warm weather and low prices. The trade had seemed obvious in 2019. In early 2022, sitting in an immigration office with a color-coded folder that wasn't quite good enough, it felt considerably less obvious. I went home. I opened my 47-page plan to the visa risk section. I had written, "Stable. Annual renewal is a straightforward process." I deleted that sentence. The healthcare reality arrived in late 2022 when I was 58, going on 59. I want to tell you exactly how it arrived, because it did not arrive the way I had imagined a health crisis would arrive. With drama, with a clear before and after. It arrived quietly. I noticed my heart doing something I could only describe as stuttering, an irregular flicker at odd moments, usually in the evenings, sometimes when I was sitting perfectly still. I am an engineer. I am not a hypochondriac. I gave it 2 weeks before I went to the hospital because I did not want to be the foreign retiree who panicked at ordinary middle-age symptoms. I went to Bangkok Hospital Chiang Mai, which is genuinely excellent. I want to be precise about this because I have heard people suggest that Thai medical care is unreliable, and that is simply not accurate. The cardiologist I saw was thorough, calm, and clearly skilled. The facility was clean, modern, and efficient in ways that frankly exceeded what I had experienced at certain American hospitals during my working years. The care I received was good. The problem was not the care. The bill was 87,000 baht. Echocardiogram, Holter monitor, 3 cardiologist consultations, Initial medication supply. My insurance covered 60% after the deductible. My out-of-pocket cost was approximately $1,100. One health episode. Not a serious one, not a heart attack, not surgery, not hospitalization. One investigation of a moderate arrhythmia that was ultimately managed with medication. $1,100, gone in a single week. Nearly one full month of my entire retirement budget consumed by a health event that was real but not catastrophic. I sat with that bill for a long time before I paid it. Not because I couldn't pay it. I could from savings without difficulty at that point, but because I was doing the math on what the bill implied about the future. I did something I had not done since I purchased my insurance policy in 2020. I read the entire document, not the summary sheet, not the marketing brochure, the full policy language, all 42 pages with a highlighter. I found 3 things I had either not known or not fully absorbed at the time of purchase. First, my premium would age band upward at 60 and again at 65. I had modeled a flat insurance cost across my retirement because the brochure described costs at the point of purchase, and I had not read the age banding schedule carefully enough. The actual cost structure was a staircase, and I was standing at the bottom of it, with my 60th birthday now less than 14 months away. Second, my policy now excluded future cardiac-related claims as a documented pre-existing condition. The arrhythmia that had required treatment had become a permanent liability exclusion in the very policy I was paying to maintain. The very health event that tested my coverage had reduced it. I read that clause 4 times to make sure I was understanding it correctly. I was. Third, for a 59-year-old male with a documented cardiac history seeking new comprehensive coverage in Thailand, adequate plans from the major international providers ran between $280,000 and $350,000 baht per year. That is $8,000 to $10,000 annually. I had budgeted $1,800 per year for healthcare insurance, $150 per month, based on the premium I was paying at the time of purchase at age 57. I was now looking at a revised reality of $8,400 per year as the entry point for coverage that would actually protect me going forward. I had underestimated my healthcare insurance costs by 380%. I wrote that figure, 380%, on a piece of paper and left it on my desk for 2 days before I touched the spreadsheet, because I needed to be in a calm state of mind before I looked at what the updated numbers would show me about my runway. I talked to expat friends during this period, not to look for reassurance, but to check whether my experience was anomalous. It was not. A 67-year-old British man I knew had suffered a stroke 18 months earlier. His insurance company contested the claim for 6 months, citing a vague pre-existing condition clause related to high blood pressure, noted in a routine physical 4 years before the stroke. The man had nearly died twice, once from the stroke and once from the financial and psychological stress of fighting the insurer while he was trying to recover in a country where his support network was thin and his Thai language skills were limited. He told me this story over coffee with a steadiness that I found more disturbing than anger would have been, because steadiness meant he had fully processed it, which meant it was simply his life now. My revised monthly budget at that point was stark and could not be argued with. Rent, 16,100 baht. Food and daily needs, $9,000. Transport, $3,500. Utilities, $3,200. Healthcare insurance, now properly annualized to reflect the real cost, $23,300 baht per month. Visa agent and miscellaneous fees, $1,200. Leisure, now reduced because I was cutting where I could, $10,000. Total, 66,300 baht per month. At the exchange rate then prevailing, approximately $1,890. My pension, still $1,800. The gap, the amount I was drawing from savings every single month just to cover my basic cost of living before any unplanned expense, was $90 per month at minimum and rising. I had crossed a line I had promised myself I would not cross. I was consuming the safety net to fund the daily life. I opened my savings account statement and looked at the balance, and I wrote in my notes that evening. The spreadsheet stopped being a planning document and became an autopsy. That same period, I began seriously researching what many long-term expats consider the stabilizing move. Putting money into a Thai condo, not land. Foreigners cannot own land in Thailand, but a condo unit under the Condominium Act foreign ownership quota, which allows foreigners to own up to 49% of any building's total floor space. I researched it the way I research everything. The developer had strong reviews. The location was good. The numbers on appreciation looked reasonable. I consulted 2 expat lawyers separately, so neither would be influenced by what the other said. They gave me almost identical assessments. The legal structure was technically valid, but both told me the same practical realities. Resale to another foreigner is complicated because the 49% foreign quota is often already filled, meaning you may wait years for turnover to enable a sale. Property disputes in Thai courts heavily favor Thai nationals in practice, regardless of what the statute says. And the Thai legal system moves so slowly that by the time any dispute resolves, the money is effectively gone, regardless of the verdict. Both lawyers were, in my experience in Thailand, the only people who told me the full truth up front without me having to extract it. I decided not to buy. It was the right decision. But the research process had revealed something alarming. Many of the men around me, men I respected, men whose lives appeared stable and settled, had significant money locked in Thai property they couldn't easily liquidate, couldn't fully control legally, and couldn't fight over in court without spending more than the property was worth. Then, in late 2022, the Thai Revenue Department announced a change in how it would interpret tax rules for foreign-sourced income brought into Thailand. For decades, the understanding in the expat community had been that you could bring prior year income into Thailand tax-free. The new interpretation changed this. Income remitted into Thailand in the same calendar year it was earned would now potentially be subject to Thai income tax. That included pensions, investment withdrawals, Social Security payments, everything that expats on fixed incomes bring in every month to pay their rent and buy their food. I heard about this in an expat Facebook group. It was the first time I saw retired men, calm, measured, sensible men, typing in all capitals. My $1,800 pension, brought into Thailand monthly, was now potentially subject to Thai income tax. My liability under the new interpretation could be $2,000 to $4,000 per year, depending on deductions and treaty provisions. The U.S.-Thailand tax treaty provided some protection but was not airtight. I hired a Thai tax accountant, 15,000 baht per year, approximately $420 for annual compliance. Another line item that had not existed in the 47-page plan. I sat down and added up the costs the plan had not included. Visa agent, 5,000 baht per year. Tax accountant, 15,000 baht per year. Healthcare premium increase above my original model, 17,000 baht per year. Extra. Total additional annual cost, not modeled in 2019, 37,000 baht, approximately $1,050 per year, from expenses that simply had not existed when I built my plan. I was not living recklessly. I was not being extravagant. I was just living in 2023 instead of 2019, in a country whose financial and legal environment for foreign retirees had shifted in half a dozen ways simultaneously. Before we continue, please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any videos in the future. My third year in Chiang Mai, 2023, was when I started to understand something that no financial spreadsheet had ever been able to capture, and that none of the 47-page plan's 6 sections had addressed. Not because I was careless, but because it is not the kind of thing that can be quantified in advance, and it is the kind of thing that the YouTube retirement industry has an enormous structural incentive to avoid discussing honestly. I had been studying Thai since before I arrived. By year 3, I could handle markets, taxis, basic social interactions. I had Thai neighbors. I was respectful of the culture in every way I knew how to be, not performatively, but genuinely. I was curious about Thai history, Thai Buddhism, Thai social customs. I was not the stereotype of the ignorant foreigner. I was, by any fair measure, making an honest and sustained effort. Our condo building had a residence committee that met quarterly. I attended regularly. I spoke some Thai. I had legitimate concerns about building maintenance, a water pressure issue in the upper floors that I had documented carefully, because that is what I do. I was listened to, politely and warmly, and then the decisions were made in the hallway after the meeting, in Thai, between Thai residents. And I learned about them from a notice on the bulletin board, not because anyone was hostile to me, not because I had done anything wrong, but because the community had a natural center of gravity and I was not inside it. I never would be. I had developed what I genuinely considered a friendship with a Thai man named Wanchai, a photographer mid-40s who spoke good English and who seemed to actively enjoy our conversations. We met for coffee regularly for 6 months. He was smart and funny, and we talked about photography and engineering and Thai history and his family. After 6 months, he invited me to a family merit-making ceremony at a temple. I attended. I followed every protocol I knew. I brought the correct offerings. I was welcomed warmly and graciously, and the evening was genuinely beautiful. At the end of it, Wanchai said to me with complete kindness and without any trace of malice, "You are very good Farang. You understand the Thai way better than most Farang." I thanked him and walked home. The walk, I turned that sentence over very slowly because I knew it was important and I needed to understand exactly what it meant. What it meant was, I was the best version of the category I would always occupy. Not a member of the community, a model outsider. The highest grade achievable by someone who was, structurally and permanently, other. The ceiling had always been there. I just hadn't been looking at it directly. I talked to men who had been in Thailand for 10, 12, 15 years. Some spoke Thai fluently. Some had Thai wives and half-Thai children. Some had lived in Thailand longer than they had lived as adults in their home countries. Every single one of them, on their most honest days, said the same thing in different words. There is a line, and you are on the other side of it, and it does not move. One of them, a 66-year-old Scotsman who had been in Chiang Mai for 14 years and who I deeply respected, said, "I stopped trying to get in about 8 years ago. I made peace with the view from outside." He said it with resignation, not bitterness. And I found that answer more frightening than any financial number I had seen, because it told me something about what my life would look like in another 10 years if I stayed. Thailand is not hostile to foreigners. I want to be precise about this. Thai people are, in my experience, genuinely warm and genuinely kind. What the YouTube videos showed, men at markets, laughing with vendors, apparently completely at ease, was probably accurate. I was at ease in Thailand for 5 years. I never felt threatened or unwelcome in any overt sense, but ease and belonging are not the same thing. Not even close. And when you are 60 years old in a foreign country, with your finances under increasing pressure, legally insecure in your right to remain, and you are also permanently outside the social fabric of every community around you, the warmth is still real, but it is no longer enough to be the foundation of a life. Overlapping with that cultural reckoning was something quieter and, in its own way, more corrosive. I want to describe the social architecture of the Chiang Mai expat retirement community as it actually functions, not as it appears in content about it. The community is real. The coffee shops are genuinely full of Western men. There are regular meetups, WhatsApp groups, shared restaurant recommendations, people who will help you navigate a visa problem or find a good dentist. It is not nothing. In the first year, it was genuinely valuable to me. But I had spent 28 years in collaborative professional environments, engineering teams working on real problems with real stakes, where conversation was purposeful and relationships had substance because we were all accountable to shared outcomes that mattered. The expat community in Chiang Mai is built primarily on shared circumstance rather than genuine connection. The conversations at the expat coffee table are about Thailand, visa rule changes, restaurant openings, bar stories, football results, who got a good deal on a renovation. They are almost never about anything in any deeper sense. Not because the men are shallow, but because shared geography, without shared purpose or shared stakes, produces a particular kind of conversation that goes wide rather than deep. I watched a man I knew, I will call him Gary, 68, from Manchester, previously a production manager at a manufacturing firm, clearly intelligent and capable, who had been in Chiang Mai for 4 years. Gary was sharp. He had run a department of 40 people. He had come to Chiang Mai with actual plans, a memoir, a photography project, maybe some volunteer teaching. I knew this because he had told me about those plans with genuine enthusiasm in our first conversation. By the time I was 3 years into my own stay, Gary had not done any of those things. His daily routine had contracted to something I could describe in a single sentence. Coffee shop, market, lunch, afternoon nap, evening beer, home. No projects, no purpose beyond the daily logistics of comfortable existence. He was not suffering in any visible way. He was pleasant and fine and not particularly unhappy. But he was not anything either, and the absence of anything had settled over him so gradually that I do not think he could see it from the inside. I watched him with a specific and personal discomfort, because I could see the trajectory, and because I recognized that I was subject to the same current if I did not make a deliberate decision to swim against it. Thailand removes the obligations that made men feel needed in their home countries. Work, family proximity, community roles, professional accountability, the 10,000 small demands you spent your working life complaining about, without replacing them with anything of equivalent weight. The freedom that looked like liberation from the outside is, from the inside, something considerably more ambiguous. You are free. Free from obligation, free from schedule, free from the need to produce anything for anyone. And a man free from the need to produce anything for anyone over enough time does not thrive. He contracts. He narrows to the diameter of his daily routine, and the daily routine narrows to the diameter of what requires the least effort, and what requires the least effort shrinks year by year without him noticing the shrinkage, because there is nothing in his environment requiring him to expand against it. I sat on my balcony one evening in late 2023 watching the Chiang Mai city lights spread across the valley. And I did something I had been putting off. I audited the previous 3 weeks of my conversations. I thought back carefully and tried to identify every exchange I had had that involved anything of genuine substance, anything that required real engagement, real honesty, any moment where either person was changed by what the other said. I found a 10-minute video call with my sister, during which I told her everything was fine, and she said she was glad, and we talked about the weather. A conversation with my visa agent about a document. A phone call with the insurance company about a claim. 2 mornings at the expat coffee table discussing a restaurant. 3 weeks. Nothing of substance. Nothing where I was required to think hard or be honest about anything real. The longest exchange of any depth was the insurance phone call, and that was a dispute. I had told my sister everything was fine, everything was not fine. But explaining what not fine meant would have required a conversation I had not yet found a way to begin, because the problem was not dramatic enough to articulate easily. I was not sick. I was not broken. I was just quietly disappearing inside a life that was comfortable and purposeless and increasingly expensive, and the only people around me in a position to understand it were the same men I was watching go through the same process. The men who do not leave. I thought about them differently after that evening on the balcony. The men who have been in Chiang Mai for 12, 15 years, whose savings have run low, or whose home country has changed too much to hold a place for them. Men who are not in Thailand because Thailand is wonderful. Men who are in Thailand because they have nowhere that is more possible. I knew one. A 71-year-old American, a former high school history teacher from Ohio, 11 years in Thailand, who drank alone at the same bar every evening with the quiet consistency of a man whose routine was the only architecture his life still had. When I asked him once, carefully, whether he had ever thought about going back to the States, he looked at me with an expression I did not have a name for and said, very quietly, "Back to what?" I thought about those 3 words for weeks. They contained the entire trap in a single question. There are two ways to fail in Thailand. You can fail and leave, while you still have the resources and the energy and something to return to. Or you can fail and stay, because leaving requires something, money, momentum, a life waiting somewhere, that you no longer have. I did not know which outcome was worse. I knew with increasing clarity which one I was going to work to avoid. By this point in 2023, I was also watching something develop around me that I want to describe carefully, because I want to be accurate rather than sensational. I had not been scammed. I want to say that clearly. But in my third and fourth years in Thailand, I watched men I knew encounter the scam ecosystem with a frequency and sophistication that my original research, which warned about the obvious, crude versions, had completely failed to anticipate. I will describe 3 cases without full names, with one identifying detail changed in each. A 63-year-old American I knew was not romance scammed in the way that word usually implies. He met a woman at a legitimate expat social event, organized, respectable, attended by professional people. She was educated, professionally credible, genuinely engaging. Over 8 months, she introduced him to a Thai investment opportunity in a real estate development project. The documentation was impeccable. The company had a professional website. The projected returns were modest enough to seem credible, 12% annually, not 40%, not the number that triggers alarm. He invested $55,000. The company did not exist. The woman had no traceable identity. The Thai police took a report. After 18 months, the investigation had produced nothing. A 67-year-old British man I knew engaged a visa agent who had been recommended by an expat he trusted. The agent had operated in Chiang Mai for 4 years, building credibility through small, legitimate transactions, successful visa renewals, genuine document assistance, before simultaneously collecting fees for a premium long-term visa program that did not exist and disappearing with money from 6 clients. 4 years of legitimate credibility used to execute one exit. A 59-year-old Canadian I knew invested in a bar and restaurant co-ownership with a Thai partner. The contract had been reviewed by a Thai lawyer the partner recommended. There was a clause buried in the Thai language sections of the document, giving the Thai partner unilateral exit rights under specific business conditions. When the business struggled, the Canadian attempted to sell his share. The partner exercised the clause. The Canadian received nothing. He retained a separate lawyer. Legal fees consumed $18,000. After 2 years, the case was still unresolved. His lawyer told him the most likely outcome, even with a favorable verdict, was a judgment that the Thai partner would simply not pay. The systemic observation I drew from watching these cases was not that Thailand is uniquely corrupt. It is not. The observation was, Thai law is slow, expensive, practically tilted toward Thai nationals, regardless of what the statute says in theory, and effectively inaccessible to foreign retirees who do not have the resources or the energy for multi-year litigation. The scams that reach sophisticated, educated, careful Western expats are not crude. They are professionally designed to exploit the specific vulnerabilities of older Western men who have money, who are socially isolated, who want genuine connection and purpose, and who have been optimistic about Thailand specifically because the retirement dream cultivated that optimism as a feature. I moved to Thailand to stop being stressed. By year 4, I was more vigilant and more isolated than I had been in any office or job site I had ever worked in. I had stopped attending events. I had reduced my social exposure. I had turned down 3 investment opportunities from people I would previously have considered trustworthy. The psychological cost of permanent defensive posture in a place you move to in order to finally relax is a cost that does not appear on any spreadsheet. It is real, it accumulates, and it takes something from you that is not easy to name, but that you notice every morning when you calculate before your first coffee what you need to be careful about today. In November 2024, I sat down and opened what I decided to call the honest spreadsheet. Not the optimistic model, not the stabilization scenario model that I had been building and rebuilding for 3 years on the premise that the pressures would normalize. The actual numbers as they stood at that moment, with every assumption set to what the evidence actually supported. Not what I hoped the evidence supported, not what the forums suggested it might support if conditions improved, but what 5 years of living in the real Thailand had taught me was the honest baseline. Savings balance. I had started with $340,000. Current balance, November 2024, $94,000. I had used $246,000 in 3 years and 8 months, not through disaster, not through scams or bad investments or any extravagance I could point to and name. Through the gap between my pension income and my actual monthly cost of living, which had run approximately $500 to $700 over my original budget every single month without pause, adding up in the quiet arithmetic of ordinary daily life. Monthly income, pension, $1,800 per month. At the current exchange rate of 36 baht to the dollar, that was 64,800 baht. This had recovered slightly from the worst rate, but remained 7% below the 33.5 baht rate I had built my original model on. 7% sounds manageable in isolation. Compounded over 4 years, on a fixed income with no upward adjustment, it was not manageable. Monthly actual costs in November 2024, rent 17,500 baht, increased twice since my arrival. Food and daily living, 11,000. Healthcare insurance premium annualized per month, 26,000. The age 60 band had increased it significantly from what I had been paying at 57. Transport and utilities, 5,500. Visa agent and administrative fees, 800. Tax accountant annualized, 1,250. Miscellaneous, 8,000. Total, 70,050 baht per month. At 36 baht to the dollar, that was $1,946 a month. Against a pension of $1,800, monthly shortfall, $146 drawn from savings at minimum every single month before any unexpected expense. Over the previous 8 months, the average actual monthly draw had been approximately $380, not $146, because life does not produce only expected expenses. The gap between the minimum and the actual was being filled by my savings, quietly, month by month, with the patience of mathematics. I looked at the trajectory forward. At current burn rate, $94,000 covered approximately 53 more months, just over 4 years. I would be 65 in 4 years. My healthcare insurance premium was projected to increase by 40 to 60% at the age 65 band, based on the schedule I had finally read in full. My pension would not increase. It is fixed and does not adjust for anything. At 65, under the honest numbers, I would be spending between $2,600 and $2,800 per month against $1,800 of income, drawing $800 to $1,000 per month from savings. What remained of my savings after that would last approximately 8 to 10 more years, until I was 73 to 75, before it was entirely gone. Then, a 75-year-old foreign national in Thailand with no savings, no access to Thai welfare systems, no Medicare coverage until returning to American soil, no safety net of any kind, just a fixed pension that no longer covered the cost of daily life in a country where I had no right of permanent residence. I found the printed copy of my 47-page plan in the drawer where it had been sitting for 2 years. I opened it to the section on financial projections and found the sentence I had written in 2019. At $1,400 per month, my $340,000 gives me 20 years of runway plus pension. I will literally never run out of money. I read it slowly. I was not angry at the man who wrote it. He had done everything he knew to do. He had simply failed to anticipate that Thailand would not remain the Thailand he had modeled. That was the error, not in the math, but in the assumption that the variables would hold. I closed the laptop. Then I opened it again. I went to the Alaska Airlines website and booked a flight to Portland, Oregon, a 2-week return to spend time with my sister and to look honestly at what coming back would actually cost and what it would actually mean and whether there was a life there that could still be constructed. I had not been home in 4 years. It was time to go and look at what I had been avoiding looking at. There was. That, I now understand, was the most important piece of luck in this entire story. And I want to name it as luck, not wisdom, because I think honesty requires that. I had not entirely burned what I had left behind in Portland, not because I had been strategically managing my exit options, but because I had a sister who still lived there and still called every few weeks, and because I had never formally closed the door on the possibility of returning, and because an old professional contact at an engineering consulting firm had reached out twice in 4 years, informally, to ask if I had ever considered part-time project review work. I was 61. I had energy I had been underusing for 4 years. I had engineering expertise that was current enough to be useful and specific enough to be valuable. I had, it turned out, a life to return to, because I had never entirely dismantled the one I had left. This matters enormously, and I say it for the benefit of the men who are where I was in 2020, planning their own exit from the West. Do not burn everything. The impulse to burn everything, to sell the house, close the accounts, sever every connection, commit completely to the new life, is psychologically seductive and practically dangerous. The men I know who are trapped in Thailand are not trapped because Thailand failed them dramatically. They are trapped because they made the exit from their home countries permanent and irreversible before they understood what the Thai life would actually cost them, in money and in other currencies that don't appear on spreadsheets. I want to tell you what the 5 years cost and what they gave, because both are real and I think you deserve the complete and honest account. What it cost? $299,000. My financial security, which I had spent 28 years building with the specific purpose of having it available for exactly this period of my life. My sense of being the man who planned everything correctly, which sounds like pride, and it was partly pride, but it was also something more functional. It was my operating identity, my orientation in the world, and losing it was disorienting in ways that I am still, at 61, in the process of integrating. And the last years of my most physically mobile, most cognitively sharp retirement decade, years that I spent managing problems, tracking spreadsheets, navigating visa renewals and insurance disputes, and tax compliance, rather than living the life the plan had promised. Those years do not come back. What it gave, genuine knowledge of myself that I do not think I would have acquired in any less expensive way. An understanding of what I actually need to feel fully human, which is not warm weather, not low costs, not the abstract freedom from obligation, but purpose, genuine belonging, and relationships where both people chose each other freely rather than out of shared circumstance and geographic convenience. I learned what the difference between solitude and isolation actually feels like from the inside. I learned that a spreadsheet can be technically perfect and still wrong, because the assumptions underneath it are doing more work than the formulas. I learned that some risks are structural and some are behavioral, and that structural risks are the ones that kill plans because they are invisible until they have already been operating for long enough to matter. I learned these things. It cost $299,000 and 5 years of the best decade of my retirement to learn them. But some men pay more, and some men never learn them at all, and they stay in Chiang Mai until the man at the bar who says, "Back to what?" is them. Now I want to give you the 12 reasons, clearly and completely, because they are not abstract. They are the specific structural dismantlement of a retirement plan that was built on conditions that no longer exist. The first, exchange rate erosion. The dollar weakened against the baht in ways that exceeded my 15% stress test within 3 years, and the movement was not temporary. It was structural. The second, Thai domestic inflation, which was real, sustained, and applied to everything from rent to food to utilities, and which the YouTube content I watched either ignored or mentioned as a footnote. The third, visa instability, not a single dramatic policy change, but the accumulating understanding that my right to remain was a revocable permission, annually reviewed, subject to discretionary enforcement, with proposed financial requirement, increases that were real and in active political discussion. The fourth, healthcare costs for an aging retiree, which are categorically different from healthcare costs for a healthy 50-year-old, and which the insurance products widely discussed in expat content were not designed to cover honestly at the age where you actually need them. The fifth, the insurance trap, the age-banding premium structures, the pre-existing condition exclusions triggered by the very events that required treatment, the policy language that meant something different in practice than it appeared to mean at purchase. The sixth, property legal risk, the practical inability to own property in Thailand in any form that provides real security or real liquidity. The seventh, the tax regime change, a real significant policy shift in 2022 and onwards that retroactively altered the financial math for tens of thousands of retirees, and that arrived without warning in a Facebook group where men typed in all capitals. The eighth, the cultural wall. Not hostility, not racism, not anything personal, but the structural reality that full belonging in Thai society is not available to foreign retirees regardless of language acquisition or cultural respect or time invested, and that the YouTube content uniformly implied otherwise. The ninth, the loneliness architecture. The way Thailand removes obligation and purpose without replacing them, and the specific corrosive effect of this on men who define themselves, their entire professional lives, through contribution and accountability. The 10th, the scam ecosystem, which has professionalized in direct proportion to the growth of the foreign retiree population, and which targets not the naive but the educated and socially isolated. The 11th, the absence of practical legal protection for foreigners in property, financial, and civil disputes. And the 12th, the mathematics, the slow, patient, indifferent arithmetic that does not care about your 47-page plan, that processes exchange rates and inflation and healthcare cost curves and tax changes without sentiment, and that eventually produces a number that cannot be argued with. I want to be clear about something, because I think clarity on this point is the most useful thing I can offer you. Thailand is still beautiful. Genuinely. The morning I left Chiang Mai, I stood on my balcony for the last time. It was the same view I had looked at on my first morning in March 2021. The same mountains to the north, the same warm air, the monks on their morning alms walk in the street below, moving in single file with the same quiet rhythm they had moved with for centuries before I arrived and would continue with long after I was gone. It was still beautiful. None of that changed. Everything else did. If you are young, healthy, earning remotely, and not dependent on a fixed income denominated in a currency that can weaken against the baht, Thailand may still work for you in ways it could not work for me. The weather is still the weather. The food is still the food. But the version of Thailand that was sold to retirees on fixed pensions as a permanent, stable, affordable paradise that would not require ongoing financial defense, that version ended. Not in 2026. It ended gradually around 2022 and 2023, and most of the YouTube content covering it has not updated its math to reflect what actually happened to men like me. I had $41,000 left when I booked my return flight. Not enough. Not anywhere near what I had planned to have at this point in my life, but enough to go back on my own terms at the moment of my choosing, rather than waiting until the decision was made for me by a number that had reached zero. The $41,000 is not a failure figure. It is the evidence that I got out while getting out was still possible. There are men in Chiang Mai right now who cannot say the same thing. I went back inside. I picked up my suitcase. I closed the door behind me. I did not look back, not because there was nothing worth looking at, but because I had already looked for 5 years, and I finally knew what I was seeing. Run the honest numbers, not the YouTube numbers, the honest ones, and then run them again, assuming you are wrong by 20% in every direction. On exchange rates, on inflation, on healthcare costs, on insurance premiums at the age you will actually need them, on the costs that did not exist in 2019 and that will exist when you arrive. If it still works after all of that, come. If it doesn't, that math was always going to catch you. Better to know now. Creating those videos is often stressful next to a full-time job. So if you enjoy watching my videos, then please support me by subscribing to my channel. It just shows the algorithm that you like these kinds of videos. See you in the next video.